aid. I can't minimize that. While the judge later apologized for misstating the timing of Flynn's work for Turkey, he severely criticized his failure to register as a foreign agent and false statements about who paid him. Quote, I mean, arguably, that undermines everything this flag over here stands for. Arguably, you sold your country out. The court's going to consider all of that. The Washington Post writes that with these words, Flynn, standing and flanked by attorneys, looked shaken, his jaw clenched. At another point, Sullivan asked, hypothetically, could he have been charged with treason? The prosecutor said they had no concerns about treason. Judge Sullivan urged Flynn to continue to cooperate. Quote, I cannot assure you that if you proceed today, you will not receive a sentence of incarceration. But I also have to tell you that at some point, if and when the government says you have concluded with your cooperation, you could be incarcerated.
And David,
wow.
David Ignatius, it seems to me that this federal judge who had very little use for what he considered to be the easy sentence that General Petraeus got when Flynn's lawyers brought up Petraeus, saying, well, he didn't get jail time. Judge said, well, I personally thought that Petraeus should have gotten jail time. This is a judge, from everything we've heard, that takes seriously government service, and especially when it comes to national security. If somebody raises their right hand and they take an oath that they're going to protect and defend this country and the Constitution of the United States, this judge takes it deeply personally when someone does not. And boy, you really saw that yesterday, saying, my God, you were selected to be the National Security Advisor to help run this country's foreign policy, and you're behaving this way?
This, Joe, is a cranky, sometimes ornery judge who does take oaths of office, government responsibilities very seriously. Flynn's lawyers were said to have been happy when he was named to preside over the sentencing hearing because he has a history of pushing back on the government when he thinks government has exceeded its authority. And Flynn's lawyers must have hoped that they could appeal to Judge Sullivan's indignation by arguing that these FBI agents who came in to interview Flynn hadn't warned him, hadn't told him that he shouldn't lie to the FBI. The opposite happened. The judge just blew a gasket. The language that he used was extraordinary. I'm not hiding my disdain. I'm not hiding my disgust. I think he went a little too far in accusing Flynn of treason, and he got one date badly wrong, implying that Flynn had done things after becoming National Security Advisor that he actually did before. But
a couple things on that, though, David. The latter is really a distinction without a difference. He is talking to foreign entities with the prospect of being Donald Trump's national security advisor, somebody to know. He's trading his influence, and he was, especially with Russia, on his way to the White House. So I don't know that there's a great difference there. And on the first part, I mean, federal judges, that's just what, I'm sorry, Joyce can tell us this in a little bit, that's just what federal judges do. If they're angry, they come in and they shake people up. Hey, why didn't you guys figure out after treason?
Joe, your basic point is absolutely right. The judges are a wild card in any criminal case, and here we just saw it. The table had been set. Mueller thought he knew exactly what was going to happen. Boom. It's all different because this judge really felt personally, emotionally angry.
So, Joyce Vance, in your years as a prosecutor, I'm interested to hear your perspective on what happened in there. I think the reason that General Flynn was described as having a clenched jaw and looking shaken is because the prosecutors had recommended that he get no prison time. And as he stood before Judge Emmett yesterday, it was clear that the judge was considering prison time very seriously and may still be, depending on what kind of cooperation General Flynn continues to lend the special counsel.
Every once in a while, a prosecutor runs into a judge who simply is not inclined to follow their sentencing recommendation. It doesn't happen a lot of the time, but it does happen. And something that I think is really interesting here is that those redacted sentencing memos that we've all been reading and trying to fill in the blanks behind the black lines on, Judge Sullivan's been able to read those memos in their entirety. So he's seen the conduct that Flynn engaged in, and it looks to me like the essential problem he has with the government is he disagrees with the charging decision. The government charged Flynn with essentially lying to the FBI. It carries a relatively low sentence under the sentencing guidelines. Judge Sullivan seemed to think that he should have been charged with more significant crimes. Right. And that looks like the origin of the issue that we saw yesterday.
Joyce, to that very point, did you get a sense from Judge Sullivan's comments from the on the stand, from the bench, that the mention of Petraeus, the redactions that he clearly has read that we have we have not seen, his anger maybe at the sentencing disparities involved here, where you have a 3-star about to walk on a serious charge, where you had General Petraeus, who was walked on a serious charge.
By the way, Mike, in the middle of your question, I hate to say this and bring this up, but Donald Trump actually told me during transition that he couldn't pick Petraeus as his Secretary of State.
Oh my gosh, I remember
because
this.
all of the other generals had told him that he had violated a sacred trust he had been given. I just a little footnote to this question. But go ahead.
A little color. Anyway, did you get the sense that Judge Sullivan is angry about sentencing disparity here?
I'm not sure if it's disparity so much as it's this idea of abuse of a position of trust.
Yeah.
That's a concept that's baked into the guidelines. You actually get an increase in your sentencing calculus if you abuse a position of trust. What happened is that the lawyers for General Flynn made, I think, an extreme miscalculation. What they wanted to do was explain that General Flynn shouldn't receive a custodial sentence, unlike other defendants in the Mueller case who had been accused of this same crime, Papadopoulos, Van der Swan, the British lawyer, and they had received brief custodial sentences. Flynn's lawyers wanted to make sure that their guy didn't go to jail. And so they used the example of General Petraeus. They compared, in this instance, sort of fatally, General Flynn's advice from the FBI to that was given to Papadopoulos and Van der Swan, and the judge wasn't buying any of it. For this judge, it was the wrong way of teeing up the issues.
Yeah, just one other side note on the whole Petraeus thing. Mika reminds me that he also, Donald Trump also said he did not trust anybody who weighed the same as Petraeus' aide.
He says he works out too much.
He says he works out too much, and as Donald said, that was a misuse.
People will think you're kidding, but he said that too.
I am not kidding.
Yes.
Donald Trump said,
Michael Flynn's in
anybody
very good
that works out that hard in the morning, that is a misuse of your energy.
That's what he
because
said.
he would be using it in other ways, perhaps.
So anyway, let me
Donald
go to
Trump
Richard
would.
Haas now. Richard.
Not sure where to go with that.
Don't take the bait.
So Richard,
It's not meant to be bait. It's just information.
I'm just reporting.
Just doing your job.
I report.
You
You decide, okay? So anyway, so Richard, I think this judge not only sent a message to General Flynn and the White House, but thought he sent a great message to our allies across the globe that had been concerned that maybe the United States was wavering its belief in the rule of law, the constitutional norms. This judge yesterday by himself said, hey, guess what? The circus may be in town, but when it leaves, the people that messed up the streets will be cleaning the streets.